Hi everyone, my name is Chris Bude, and in this video, I'll go through what intolerance of uncertainty is and how it may affect some of your clients' lives. So, I'll walk you through how to administer a CBT exercise, basically just designed and intended to help you and your clients identify and challenge beliefs about uncertainty through just collaboratively creating and conducting a behavioral experiment in hopes of basically just helping your clients raise their tolerance of uncertainty. And you'll also have access to materials that I go through in this video, such as the CBT Intolerance of Uncertainty worksheet that I've created for you to print out and to use with your clients, as well as the example that we'll be going through later in this video. So to start, dealing with uncertainty is an unavoidable part of daily life. And because we can't see the future, we can't ever be certain about what exactly is going to happen every single day. And people vary in their ability to tolerate uncertainty. That is, some people are okay with having a lot of uncertainty in their lives, and others can't stand even a small amount of it. So, what is intolerance of uncertainty? And as you probably have guessed, it's obviously pretty normal and even common for most of us to be somewhat uncomfortable with uncertainty. And we prefer to know that the restaurant our friend invites us to serves the food that we actually like, and that our clinical practicum manager tells us exactly what he thinks about our performance. So this knowledge tends to feel more comfortable to most of us than not knowing anything about the restaurant we're about to go to and not knowing whether our manager thinks we're doing a good or a bad job. So, a state of uncertainty can be triggered by ambiguous or uncertain situations. And research has shown that individuals who have a high disposition of intolerance to uncertainty are more likely to evaluate uncertain and ambiguous situations in negative ways, which can lead to behavioral, cognitive, and emotional dysregulation. Intolerance of uncertainty is a vulnerability factor and also a key feature in individuals who suffer from various anxiety disorders, such as generalized anxiety disorder and even OCD. And intolerance of uncertainty also increases the risk for many other conditions, such as depression. So, an individual suffering from this may worry about things even if the odds of it happening to them are very low, or believe that uncertainty is a sure sign that something bad will happen. Or they might prefer to rather know that the outcome of a situation will be bad, rather than not knowing the actual specific outcome. And if an individual can't stand having uncertainty in their life and their level of tolerance is very low for it, they're probably going to do things that are designed to either remove all of the uncertainty in daily life situations or are outright avoiding uncertain situations. And continuing to avoid anxiety-inducing situations is arguably the main thing that keeps intolerance of uncertainty alive. So engaging in safety behaviors, it may temporarily reduce their worry and anxiety. However, it's therefore maintained through negative reinforcement. So some of the behaviors that people do when they are intolerant of uncertainty includes, just to start, seeking excessive reassurance from others. And this might be asking friends or family members their opinion on a decision that they may have to make multiple times a day. It can also include double checking, for example, calling loved ones repeatedly to make sure that they're okay, or rereading emails several times to check that they are perfect and that there are no spelling mistakes. And I know that many people do this to some degree, but people with very low levels of tolerance to uncertainty would do this to an excessive amount where it's interfering with their ability to complete tasks or move on. They may also engage in excessive list making as a way to attempt to eliminate all uncertainty. And some will make long and detailed to-do lists, sometimes several times every day. They may also engage in procrastination or avoidance as a safety behavior because being uncertain can cause a lot of anxiety. Some people simply procrastinate or avoid other people, places, or situations. For example, if you do something, you don't really have to feel uncertain because you're distracting yourself. And that brings us to distraction, where many people who are intolerant of uncertainty keep themselves busy most of the day. That way, they don't have to think about all the uncertainty in their life. And they may also look for information and solutions to every possible problem they may face and require perfect solutions that have a 100% chance of working before taking action. And another one that just comes to mind is refusing to delegate tasks to other people. So many who are intolerant of uncertainty will not allow anyone either at work or at home to do certain tasks. And this is because they cannot be sure that it will be done correctly unless they themselves do it. So you've probably noticed that all of these behaviors require a lot of time and energy. And needing to be certain about everything cannot just take the joy out of life, since surprises or unexpected events can become something threatening, but it can keep individuals stuck in a vicious cycle of worrying and feeling anxious. Also, if an individual uses avoidance as a safety behaviors, they might miss out on a lot of positive opportunities in life that would challenge their negative beliefs about uncertainty. And the ability of people who suffer from this to learn how to better tolerate uncertainty and manage any associated symptoms of anxiety will be beneficial in improving and maintaining their mental health. And anxious clients may benefit from using behavioral experiments to alter their evaluations of uncertain events. And that brings us to our CBT exercise and worksheet. So this is what the CBT exercise and worksheet for the challenging beliefs about uncertainty CBT exercise looks like. And you'll basically be collaboratively creating a behavioral experiment that challenges evaluations about uncertain events. With that said, we're going to apply an example to better understand the instructions of this exercise. And you can either just watch this video or you can pull up the materials, which should be in a folder. Alright, so here's the example of Joe, who is 26 years old. He has recently quit his job after 6 years, mentioning poor work conditions, and is about to re-enter the workforce. However, he doesn't know exactly what career opportunities might be available and realistic for him. Some of Joe's thoughts include, what if I hate my new job? What will my work hours be like? Will I still have time to hang out with my friends? What if I don't have enough skills to get a good paying job? And what if I have to move somewhere else to make a livable wage? So Joe is struggling with uncertainty and ambiguity of not having a conclusive answer to his worries and concerns. In dealing with this uncertainty, Joe relies on safety behaviors. He frequently seeks reassurance from his friends and family, and spends considerably more time over-preparing and tailoring his resume and letter of intent. Some days, he distracts himself by keeping busy, by engaging in activities that don't really give him enough time to worry about searching for a job. So Joe is overestimating the likelihood and effects of potentially negative situations. Therefore, he attempts to eliminate uncertainty by either making the future more predictable or by avoiding triggering situations or events, which in this case happens to be the job search itself and even interviews. So, as you may have guessed, unfortunately, Joe's worrying and stress do not eliminate uncertainty or increase the predictability of future events by much. In reality, it's impossible to eliminate all uncertainty, and Joe's worrying and anxiety stemming from intolerance of uncertainty in actuality may have the unintended effect of making him feel less confident, which makes it more difficult for him to complete his tasks. It may also lower his openness to new experiences, such as applying for a job opportunity that he might not be thoroughly familiar with. By helping Joe reduce his need for predictability and learning to be more tolerant of uncertainty, he could, and working with him, could collaboratively reduce the intensity of his anxiety and stress. And moving on and using that example, this is what a filled out worksheet may end up looking like. And I'll go through the instructions starting with the beliefs about uncertainty. So in this first section, you will guide and encourage your client to explore their beliefs about uncertainty. In addition, encourage the client to self-monitor in the hope of understanding more about the specific triggers and situations that induces their anxiety. The goal here is to help the client identify one or more of their beliefs about uncertainty and to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 on how strongly they believe it to be true. And this could be, you could start by asking questions. Why is uncertainty so bad? Why is it so hard to tolerate in uncertainty in your life? What is it specifically about it that upsets you? And would you feel comfortable reading some of the intolerance of uncertainty scale items and letting me know which ones resonate with you? So I don't have these scale items, which is basically just a clinical psych test you could administer. You won't be administering any tests, but there's a bunch of different items there that can help guide the client in finding exactly what it is and maybe how they feel about uncertain situations that they may be uncomfortable with. So in Joe's case, this might look like, not knowing what happens feels distressing and uncomfortable. And I've added a few things here to help guide the client. So they'll be rating how deeply they believe this belief about uncertainty to be true. So not knowing feels distressing and uncomfortable. They might believe that to be, let's say, an 8 out of 10. Or being uncertain means bad things are more likely to happen. Next to it, they can have a low rating. In this example, 8.5 out of 10. Moving on to the next category, in feelings and situations. In this section, you're going to be helping the client identify and describe a particular uncertain situation that might trigger their uncertainty belief, that might trigger these uncertainty beliefs. And you'll encourage the client to describe emotional and physical symptoms that they may feel when facing uncertainty. Afterwards, help them categorize what makes their chosen situation uncertain. Is it an entirely new situation? Is there an aspect of ambiguity? Is it regarding other people's behavior? Is it related to not knowing how they will react or perform in this situation? And you can ask questions like, can you tell me something about the situation that might trigger this particular belief? Is there a recent situation where you felt this way about uncertainty? And what do you feel emotionally in situations like that, as well as what do you feel physically? So Joe might end up writing something like, I just quit and I have to start looking for a new job. I have no idea where to start or what I'll end up getting, which stresses me out. What if I hate it? What if I've wasted my time? Another thing he might write would be, every time I open up my computer to search for a job, I can feel my stomach start to sink and my heart starts to race. And it's an ambiguous and kind of new situation for me. I've been working for the last job for so long, and now I need to find something that pays well so I can afford to live. So each of these little categories are going to have little details both at the top and at the bottom that will help guide the client. Moving on is the coping and safety behavior section. So here, you'll be helping the client describe how they would typically cope in uncertain situations, which they have previously mentioned, and if they could. Identify and explore safety behaviors such as procrastination or reassurance seeking, over-preparing, double-checking, avoidance, and avoidance of situations that the client may typically use to cope when facing with uncertainty. You can ask them, what would you usually do if you're confronted or if you're in an uncertain situation like the one you just mentioned and there's no real way to avoid it? Or is there something you would typically do to feel more certain and feel more safe? So here, Joe might write, if I had to sit down and find a job for 4 hours, I'd probably get distracted by worrying about whether I'd actually like the job, and I'd likely be on the phone with a friend or my brother the entire time, talking to them about it to feel reassured that I'll find the right one. If I was going to go to an interview, I'd try to memorize every answer to every question they might ask me, and rehearse it multiple times with a friend. It would take forever, so I can't see myself doing this often. And yeah, just moving on, the fourth category is the fourth category here is the behavioral experiment. And this is where you're actually going to sit down with them and collaboratively create an experiment that tests their first belief. And yeah, the behavioral experiment can be something observational, it can be a survey, or it can be just a simple hypothesis testing experiment. Some questions you want to go over and keep in mind, and you can access all of these in the folder, would be, can the behavioral experiment be conducted in the therapy office together? Can it be conducted at home, somewhere public, potentially over online therapy? And one thing to keep in mind is that quick experiments in the therapy office can help build momentum for larger, more life applicable out of office experiments. You'd want to think about where the experiment's going to take place. How is it going to be conducted? What data is going to be recorded, such as thoughts, bodily sensations, emotions, behavior, the environment, or even other people's behavior? Who will need to be present during this experiment? What problems might occur? And how would you manage to deal with problems that might occur when doing this behavioral experiment? And it's also always important to consider safety, practicality, and the client's readiness to undergo a behavioral experiment. So here, Joe might write, I could try to sit down and find a job for a couple hours without calling anyone to reassure me that it's going to be okay. And I'll record what I'm feeling and how strong my emotions are on a scale of 1 to 10 every 10 minutes. And you may have done something very similar. If you've worked with CBT before, you may have already be very familiar with something like this. And Joe might say, I'm going to do a mock interview during my next therapy session. I'll tell myself this is just practice and only go for 15 minutes. I won't over-prepare the night before, and I won't know the questions my therapist will ask me, so I'll have to confront the uncertainty head on. And lastly, after doing this behavioral experiment, you're going to want your client to record the outcome of it. So here, you give yourself and the client time to process and understand the meaning of the experiment and the subsequent recorded data and information. What is the client's understanding of the experiment? How do they interpret the results? What do they believe the results say about them or the people in their life? And you want to encourage the client to reflect on the process of completing a behavioral experiment and what they may have learned from it. Some questions you can ask would be, what happened during the experiment? How did you feel doing it? Is there something you learned from this compared to before doing this experiment? How much would you say you still believe your original uncertainty belief to be true now after doing it? And rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how strong you still believe your initial belief about uncertainty is true after doing this behavioral experiment. And does the results relate to a previous belief? And does the outcome of this experiment affect or change your original belief? So here, Joe might say, I felt uncomfortable and I really wanted to call someone to get me through it, but I did my best not to. Eventually, after about an hour, it became easier to just list down potential places I wanted to send my resume to. So my new belief, and Joe might write his new belief, is uncertainty still makes me feel really anxious, but I'm able to push through it. And lastly, kind of relating to his original beliefs, the mock interview didn't go as bad as I thought it would. I eventually became more relaxed. Old belief, being uncertain means bad things are more likely to happen, 6 out of 10. So it didn't drop necessarily a huge amount, but enough to get the client rolling a little bit and maybe to help them just build more confidence that they're able to get through uncertain situations and that they'll be able to manage their anxiety and stress in uncertain situations. And that brings us to the end. That's everything. So thank you for watching this video. And as mentioned previously, everything I covered here, including the worksheets, I have a colored one and a black and white one that you'll be able to print out. Just make sure to put it into landscape mode prior to printing it out. And yeah, thanks again.